Deep in the Sierra Nevada mountain ranges in the central and eastern California and Nevada border is the Big Pine Paiute Shoshone tribe. Tonight, we will visit their lands and we'll just go on the tour of 6 stories, 6 mysterious legends of the spirits that still haunt this valley today. We'll go live to 2 reporters brave enough to explore these haunted regions, Keeneeh, Fricke, and Sage Romero. Let us jump to them right now and begin tonight's Tales of Mystery. Our first story begins with the legend of the man-faced dog. Here's Keeneeh, Fricke, and Sage Romero to explain that legend.
Hello, I am Keeneeh, Fricke, and I'm going to tell one of my Uncle Sage, and we're going to talk about the man-faced dog.
Right, that's right. Thank you. That's my nephew Keeneeh. So we're here in this location right now. This spot was the site where some young people came to do what young people do at nighttime. They just come hang out and do whatever they're doing, okay? So in this location here, you look about, it's kind of covered from the road. There's not too much around. It's a nice hidden side up in the hills. But what happened here was these young people were camping, where they had a fireplace right here in the middle of this ground here, where the car's parked there, so they had a little fire going. And then they said they heard the howling of a dog. It was kind of in the distance. So they looked around and said, what's going on? And they kept hearing it. They heard it come from over there at first. And then not too long after that, they heard it coming from over there after that. And then not too long after that, they heard it coming from over there. And then after that, they heard it came from down there. Like too fast, like it was a bunch of different animals, but it was just one. And so they started getting scared. And it got quiet, and they said, well, let's just take a picture. Back then we had the cameras, and they took a picture right here. And when they took that picture, they were facing that way. But after they took the picture, they said the howling came back. And they said, what's that howling sound? And what's that howling sound? And they said it started running around them, and that howling never stopped. And it kept running all around them like it was running real fast. And it kept coming, and then it got closer and closer, and then it scared them out, and they got in their car, took off, and they left their fire and everything. And the next day, they went and developed their pictures in their camera, and they said they had a picture of one of the girls sitting on the rock, and back then, the pictures came in double exposure, so you'd get 2 pictures. But in one of those double exposures, a young lady was sitting there, and she had a weird look on her face, and they said, oh, no, look at you, what come you look like that for? It was because she seen something scaring her. She heard something right behind her when they took the picture. And they didn't think nothing of it, they just laughed at it. But then after that, they looked onto the double exposure, the same print of the same picture. And on that second picture, there was a little face right next to her with a little ugly man with the body of a dog looking up at her. And they all screamed, and they all got scared, and they went and took those pictures and they burned them, because they didn't want to see it anymore. So this is the location where that man-faced dog was, over here.
So what does the face look like? Like a homeless man or a handsome face, or what kind of face is it?
They described the picture as like a devil. You know how those devil masks look? That's what they said it kind of looked like. All right.
Alright, that's it for the face dog man. And that's it. Good night.
As with the legends of European witches, so do the Paiutes have their own tales of witches. To explain about the legend of Senua and an ogre that created a volcano, we'll go back once again to Keeneeh, Fricke, Sage Romero.
Hello, I'm Keeneeh, Fricke. I'm in this volcano. This is part 2, the ogres.
All right, so what he means by ogre is this next story is a woman known as Senua. She's similar to an ogre, kind of like a giant, but a spirit. And that spirit comes from the top of that volcano. You see these black rocks and everything. But she would sit up there and she could see this whole valley. You turn around, you see the whole valley behind you. And there she would watch for children that were playing at night, that were out being mischievous or not listening. And then when she'd see them, she could hear them because she had like super hearing. And she'd run all the way down the volcano, over these rocks, down to the village, and she would lure them in with a rattle. So it'd be like, and so when they'd hear that rattle, they'd go look for it. And then when she'd see them, she'd grab them, and she had a big basket because she was big, like an ogre. And she'd take them with her strong hand and throw them in the basket, and there were spikes and pitch on the bottom of that basket, so they would get impaled and get stuck inside her basket, and then she would run back to the volcano, and then that's where she would feast upon them. So that's why they say when you're at nighttime, you be good and you listen to your family, your parents, because she's up there watching and listening. Actually, a story of the giant, the creation story of the volcano was the giant roamed the land, and they were eating the people, the giants. But this big one had one eye, and the people started fighting it, and they couldn't defeat the giant because it was so huge. But what they actually did was they called upon the water babies, which is another spirit of the land. And the water babies actually attacked the giant and were strong enough to subdue that giant and make it weak. And while they were fighting, what happened was one of the men took a bow and arrow and shot that giant right in the eye. And when that eye got hit, he fell right into the hole. Just before there was a volcano, fell into the hole, went to the bottom, and then the volcano blew up because he hit the bottom with such force. And then that's what created what we're seeing here in front of our eyes.
Wow, so that was interesting. So, alright, back to you. I'm Fricke.
As darkness sets in the valley, all creatures usually go to sleep, and shadows of mystery appear. Some of these shadows even move. We go live now to Fricke once again to talk about the legend of the Shadow People.
Hello, I'm Fricke. I'm in this camp somewhere, I don't know. And this is another story, the Shadow People.
So what you see here is the old road behind me that got washed out during one of the big floods that we had in the 80s, in the early 1980, I believe. But so what you see along this route is the Indian camp. That's where people lived before there was a fire in the early 2000s that took it all out. But this place is very, very active with things known as spirits, shadow people, things that you see out there. And there's stories of people coming across a dark being sitting on the road like this, and just sitting there, and them coming up to them and trying to have a conversation, but there's no reaction whatsoever. That was the spirits. There's also a time that a couple people in the early 2000s after the fire, they were here. They said that they kept feeling something weird because they had a little trailer set up in this grounds over there, and something kept just giving them a weird vibe. And then the older gentleman went outside, and he slipped and fell down on his nose, and he cut his nose. And then just then his partner, she went into the trailer, and she said there was a woman standing in her kitchen. And that woman slowly turned around her, and she was wearing an old-fashioned dress. And she said she looked at her looked right at her in the eye, and she said, "You play, you pay," she said to her. And that made her scream, and she went running out to her partner, and they were out there freaking out. But yeah, this is an old Indian camp. There's a lot of spirits and things that you see, because this is where a lot of the older people lived a long time ago. And a lot of things have happened here. The flood, the fire, all these different things. But the camp is back there, and that's where you see a lot of those shadow people.
Okay, so there's some teenagers here, but how did they see the shadow? Like, they see their night vision camera with light or something?
They needed no equipment to see the shadow people. They just saw them. They just appeared before them and disappeared. So that's what happens with that.
Pretty spooky. Back to you, Keeneeh Fricke.
Water, the life source and the giver of life throughout the universe. But it also doesn't only give life, it takes away life. Deep in these streams of the Sierra Nevadas, the spirit of the water babies lurk. Keeneeh Fricke and Sage Romero will explain just how these creatures lurk and live in the life sustenance of this valley.
Hello, I'm Keeneeh Fricke. I'm standing here in this lake because this creek is kind of good of fresh water, but this is not a creek. This is a spirit. It's called the water babies.
So our valley has legends of water babies, and what these are spirits of babies that were stolen by witches long time ago. And those witches took them from the people, and they took them to the water source. They went to the head of the waters in the mountains, and they drowned the babies as like a revenge. And while they were there, they was also did a curse to the water so that the spirits would remain within the waterways of the valley for all time. And from then on, those babies would remain there and look for the person that they believed had murdered them. So anybody that shows up by the water at night could be seen as the person that drowned them. So they get revenge by drawing the person in near to them, calling them in with the baby calls and stuff. And then when the person goes and looks in the water, so what's going on? What's that? Then the water baby will grab them and pull them into the water with a supernatural strength, and then they would drown the people. And it was their way of getting revenge upon those that had drowned them, but it was deception placed upon them by those witches. And so that's our story of the water baby. So we tell our children to not play around or disrespect the waters at night. And this is the water baby stories. Ho.
All right. How about this question? How does a water baby can you see a water baby with long hair, right? But how about in the mud? What about you saw one?
They say if you see the water baby, just keep on, go away from the water. That's the traditional belief. Because it's nighttime, there's not supposed to be babies playing by the water. Obviously, if you see babies playing, frolicking in the water, there's something not natural to that. But it's just a teaching to keep our children away from the water at night so that they don't fall in and hurt themselves too.
All right, water babies in the lake. That's it. The whole story of spirits. I'm Keeneeh Fricke. Back to you.
To some, the goat is a satanic symbol. And with the Big Pine Paiutes, it's no exception. Can you imagine if you encountered a man with that head and those legs attached? We will go explore just that. Story of the Goat Man.
Hello, my name is Keeneeh Fricke. I'm here in this road of abandoned place. This is where we're going to talk about another spirit of the Goat Man.
So there are stories about a man with the face of a goat, legs of a goat, but the body of a man. And this individual was known to be seen along roads and at gatherings, community gatherings. Sometimes there'd be like a bonfire or a dance after an event, and the people would see him dancing with the ladies. But he looked kind of normal at the time. It wasn't until you looked down at his feet that you would notice that he had hooves. And there's also stories of people picking him up upon the road. They would drive and see a hitchhiker coming along, and they'd pick him up on a dark road such as this. And then when they would drive with him, then they would finally notice after too late that he had hoof legs. And so when that happened, the person would have to be rid of him, ask him to leave or stop, or just go about their business and pretend they didn't notice. Because if you make it obvious, then the goat man wouldn't be able to do something to the person. So the spirit is known to be within this region. Many people have stories about him, but this is a type of place that he would be seen as well. So that's the story of the goat man.
I have a question. So, if some people saw a hitchhiker, like, is it a goat man wearing a mask with different kind of shoes and jacket? What does he actually wear?
So he looks like a normal man, but when you notice him in the dark, then you start seeing those things. It's not a mask. They say it's his actual face. It's his actual hooves. And he's got on clothes like a person.
Interesting. So there you have it. A goat man with legs like this and a face like a bear. Back to you, Keeneeh Fricke.
Those are some chilling tales. Well, once again, thank you to Keeneeh Fricke and Sage Romero for that excellent reporting. You wouldn't catch me out there. Tune in for another episode of the mysteries of the Sierra Nevadas.